This is Regained Wellness Podcast with Jamie Logie, episode 125, How You Can Better Manage Stress.
Here we go. Pivot. 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 Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jamie Logie. I run regainedwellness.com, and this is the Regained Wellness Podcast. So thank you for joining me here today on a kind of a recap episode on stress. I've covered a lot before, but this is just a little refresher, if you will, and how you can hear in the clip how to not deal with stress in the best way and how it affects all of us. And it's just, there's different, little tips and management tricks you can use to handle it better. And I'll just, share some more of the info on how damaging stress really is, regardless of if it's a real physical stress or a perceived stress or all the things like that and the actual damages and issues it's causing. So be kind of a quicker episode, but I think always good to be aware of this, as it does affect so many people, and how to better handle and deal with it. So just before that, make sure, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. That way you get it automatically delivered to you each week, and I don't have to hand deliver it, and it's automatically sent. You can, iTunes is probably where you're listening, but if not, places like Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, wherever you get a podcast, hopefully I'm there. I should be. So that's, make sure you subscribe so you're all set. And let's get right into this. Okay. Like I said, it's not that you can ever eliminate stress. There'll always be some, and actually a little bit is good for you. It's just, chronic long-term stress. That's the problem we're looking at. So it's not that it's going to just be, snap your fingers and it's gone. It's more about how you can cope and manage stress. So to me, it's like when we're looking at this whole idea of being as healthy as possible, your diet, your nutrition is, the critical part. That's the cornerstone of all things. And then it gets into obviously your fitness, your exercise, being active, keeping your body moving, drinking good, clean water, sleep. But stress, without a doubt, has to be the most overlooked aspect of getting healthy and well. Like with those things I mentioned, we're good at recognizing we need to eat better. More people are getting into eating as clean as possible and eating organically and finding, grass-fed beef. And we know to take better care of ourselves through exercise, and, gym memberships are as high as ever. People know all this stuff. But we allow stress to practically undo all that great work we have done. So if you think stress is not physically affecting you and your body, you really need to get an understanding of why this is called the silent killer. If we want to look at what stress is, it's simply how your body reacts to potentially harmful situations. And what is the most important thing here is it really doesn't matter as it pertains to your body and how it responds. It really doesn't matter if that stress is real or perceived. Your body reacts the exact same way. So if anyone tells you your worries or whatever, it's just in your head, that's just not how it works. Your body doesn't know the difference between that physical stressor or that just perceived one. So essentially, during times of stress, your body reacts with the release of chemicals and hormones, primarily cortisol is the main one, that are there, and they're in us to help prevent injury or trauma. And everyone knows this as the fight or flight response. That's, pretty much common knowledge. And that response is extremely crucial to our survival. So whether that is you escaping the chase of a saber-toothed tiger or jumping out of the way of a speeding car running a red light today is probably more relevant, or trying not to get trampled on a Black Friday sale in a Walmart. The physical stressors we have are, we really don't have to worry about, well, in some situations, like, weather, trauma, getting caught out in storms like we would have, our ancestors would have used to, or predators or whatever. We don't have the same issues, but our body still has that built-in mechanism to protect us. It's in these short bursts, it's really necessary and crucial to our survival and our well-being that our body is able to respond quickly and protectively. But chronic long-term stress can end up having some really serious negative effects on your body. So I've covered this in other episodes, but here's a long list. Actually, here's just a chunk of it, but I'm going to go through what stress can do to your body with the damages it causes over this chronic long-term affliction, basically. So you're looking at things like headaches and dizziness, ADD, ADHD, anxiety, as irritability and anger can lead to panic disorders, grinding of the teeth and jaw, which can cause just, straight up jaw and tooth damage, affecting sleep, increased heart rate, stroke, heart disease, hypertension. You got diabetes, type 1 and 2, digestive disorders like bloating, upset stomach, irritable bowel syndrome. Then it can contribute to weight gain and obesity. Makes weight loss really hard when your body's stressed. It's these elevated stress hormones. It's the last thing they want to do is burn off body fat. They're in sort of this trauma preservation stage, and your body just wants to hold on to what it's got. It doesn't know what's going to happen. It doesn't know if it's going to get fed. So body fat is like your backup energy source. It's like a reserve fuel tank, and there's no way your body wants to waste any of that. So that elevation of the stress hormones just grinds weight loss to a halt. And leads to, things like depression, ulcers, lack of energy, immune system dysfunction. It goes way on past here, but clear that it's something we need to, like I said, we can't fully eliminate it, but at least manage as best as possible in our lives. So, like I said, the way our body's built are for these little incidents of stress where it can react, protect yourself, help you run faster, jump out of the way, lift a car. You hear those stories of mothers and a car is somehow fallen on a kid and they're able to pick it up. That's that fight or flight response is kicking in full gear and what your body's capable of. But we're looking at the modern stresses now. And like I said, it doesn't matter if it's a physical or a perceived stress, your body still responds the same way. And it seems weird that something we can't see, smell, or touch can cause that amount of issues. But at the moment, when we're looking at some of the research and studies, at the moment, 43% suffer adverse health effects, some of those things I listed just before, from stress. And the American Medical Association has observed that stress can be associated with causing 60% of all illnesses and disease because of how it manifests itself, and then when it's left untreated, what it can lead to. It's ridiculous. 75 to 90% of all doctors' office visits are usually for stress-related ailments and just straight up complaints with the problems, like whether it's, like I said, the digestive problems that comes from it, or the ulcers, or they can all be kind of linked back to the stress issue. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, declared stress a hazard to the workplace, and that it's costing the American industry through lost days of illness, sickness, around $300 billion annually, billion with a B. And that's from people who are just not able to get to work because they're suffering from whatever issues. If you add in the amount of people who are at work but are not as productive as they would be when it's healthy, they are healthy, this is even more so. Like someone coming in and trying to tough it out because they're sick really doesn't bring a lot to the table or to the business. So it's costing the economy a lot because people aren't taking care of themselves. So it really is time to recognize that stress can take a really tough hold on our lives. And we need to recognize that it has evolved over the centuries. Like I said, our concerns, 300 years ago would have been adequate, worrying about adequate shelter, worrying about harvesting crops in time, stress of wars or stuff like that. And it's evolved into like the ridiculous things we've made ourselves worry about, from, the real stress is like, financial stress or workplace stress, but then into worrying about, social stresses and how you may or may not be fitting in with something, or like our online presence and people stressing about stuff like that, like, or even down to little things like you're missing certain TV shows and that's causing you some anxiety, because like just any little thing that can affect your body and that it can create a little bit of anxiety is a real stressor. And it might be small. It might seem something small to someone else, but it's still a big deal as it pertains to you. And again, how your body responds to it. But it was just in our modern day and age, we've created so many extra stressors that never used to exist in the history of mankind. So when we're looking at, if we want to narrow down the three big ones that are still happening on top of all those, the newer ones we've kind of created, is the three areas are, the first one that cause stress is the environment. And that's that'll never change. This can be weather threats, high heat, high humidity, too much cold, like that. But that's more of something our bodies are adaptable to and are designed to handle. Like they've been conditioned to that. If you think, like, I live in Southwestern Ontario, and without getting into global warming issues, our winters are still pretty bad. They're not what they used to be compared to like when I was a kid. But even like where I live, we have a backyard fence that was about 4.5 feet high, and when we'd have big winters, we could walk all the way across all the neighborhood backyards because the snow was above the fence, and the snow would be halfway up the door. And we still get these bad days now for sure, but they're not as extended as they once were. But the point is, like I was just thinking, this year there was a day where I remember I had to dig my car out of the snow, and it's 2017. Everything is so easy for us. We don't, really have to be physically strong, or like our environments are warm. We have great housing and transportation. And I try to picture the original settlers that came into Canada and how they traveled through, like the St. Lawrence Seaways into Quebec, and they worked their way into Southwestern Ontario. And they, even the original Native Canadians, and they would have traveled through up the Great Lakes and the connections, and or any of the original pioneers and where they settled. How in the hell they made it through the winters, I don't understand. And I don't understand how they ever stayed here. Like when I see how bad some of our winters are today, where getting around in our day and age is still so tough. How these people in the 1700s, depending on where they were, why when they came here and experienced the first winter, why they ever stayed is baffling. I don't get it. It's different compared to settlers who settled in California or Arizona or places like that where it was warmer. But here it's just it's extraordinary what these people must have had to entail during. It's amazing they survived and that we're here still in these areas. So like I said, our bodies are more prepared to handle that. But now, and other environmental stresses that we've created are crowded cities. That can really, I lived in London, England for years, and I'm pretty low key and relaxed-ish. But after a couple of years of fighting crowds on a day-to-day basis through the underground tubes out into the streets, I was ready to just start throwing people into buildings. It just grinds at you after a while. So I mean, that's something we've created ourselves. But the other environmental stresses now would be pollution. And that's physically damaging our bodies that we can observe happening, and that never existed, till recently. So like as far as the environment goes, it's kind of a constantly changing list, but still kind of rooted in some of those basics. So the next thing where your stress comes from is your body. This can be when you are run down, sick, ill, like I mentioned, not getting enough sleep, not feeding yourself properly, not exercising, more of those physical stresses. And again, because we're not as active as we used to be as a species, I guess, if you want to call it, that's something else we've created on ourselves. And we've created a lot of foods, like facsimile foods, and drinks and sugars and ingredients and trans fats and high fructose corn syrups that, again, never existed before and are throwing our body haywire. So we're giving it more stress that never used to be there and never should be there. So, and then probably the most important as well is that the third thing stress comes from is your thoughts. And again, this will be probably the most difficult to deal with, as your mind can really lead you astray with negative thinking, having a narrowed perspective on something that in truth is not, might not actually be significant at all, but in our body it still is significant. So we've really let our thought process kind of create more stresses that don't need to be there, even though they are still there. So how then are you best able to deal with stress? What are the first steps to dealing with stress? So psychologists say that one of the first things that needs to be done when dealing with stress is to identify where the stress is coming from. So this is really crucial, as it allows you to realize what stress is actually out of your control and what might be made up by you. So if you realize, like I said, if you're feeling overly stressed and you look at your situation and it's the middle of winter, so the weather can physically be causing your body stress, and you're living in a big city, and so you're always exposed to all these people and the transportation, and you're getting, maybe sick because it's that time of year where it's, there's not enough daylight and you're not getting enough sleep. When you identify that that's where those stresses are coming from, it actually can make it a lot easier in your mind to deal with it, because you realize, even though like you have put yourself in that situation, that you're not directly causing it. It's the weather doing it. It's all those people around you. There's things that you can change, but it's a powerful thing to understand that the stress is actually out of your control. Compared to ones that might be made by you. And then if you identify those, then you can understand, okay, how to address that and how to deal with that. These are things I'm bringing on myself. Like I'm letting my mind sort of wander where it shouldn't, or, negative thoughts and negative self thoughts, things like that. It's important to realize where that stress is coming from. A lot of the times it can be just those things like the environment and whatnot. So it enables you to put yourself a bit more at ease by realizing some things are really out of your control, and that panics a lot of people. But like the psychologists say, even though you realize something's out of your control, that can actually ease things down and let your body become more capable of dealing with it, like internally. So it's essentially allowing you to create a better stress management mindset. And this goes back with the American Heart Association. They share that changing your thought process has some real stress management benefits. Like I said, you're not going to get rid of stress completely. It's just more about limiting it and managing it better. So they say that simply getting in the habit of, I can't do this, to I'll do the best I can really actually set you up for success. It's just that mindset change. And can really work wonders in your body, because that's what you're looking at, is managing the stress that is not, as likely to cause all these potentially horrific situations. So it can really help along, like doing that, along with telling yourself you can handle things by taking things one step at a time, as opposed to thinking everything is going wrong. It's easy to let all that crap pile itself on you. But if you tell yourself you can handle whatever by just dealing with one thing at a time, this is where it really helps to, I don't do this as much, like journaling, but that's a really powerful way of getting your thoughts out and seeing what you have to deal with. I'm big on writing out like lists as far as what you want to do each day or accomplish, even if it's little things, like just having an order of it. And if you are feeling stresses, if you have all these things to deal with, don't let them bundle up. Just like write down what you've got to do and then just worry about doing one of the things one at a time. And again, like the American Heart Association says, this really helps change your thinking and helps to help manage everything. So here's some, I got 5 other ways that, again, recommended by, psychologists and experts on the best ways you can deal with stress. So number 1 is simple. Again, these are simple, but the things people sort of forget to do. Number 1 would be counting to 10 before reacting. And this can really help, whether it's just you're not wanting to lose your temper, or before you respond, count to 10. That's one of the classics that does still work. Exercise, of course, is always going to be a good stress manager, but even just like long walks or bike rides or hikes can have that calming effect on the body. And when you do exercise, you get that burst of mood altering chemicals like endorphins, whether you have like a runner's high or just after workouts. Exercise is always a go-to, and it's free, well, besides gym memberships, as long as they aren't jacked through the roof. But like going for a walk does not cost you anything. One of the big, number 3 of ways to deal is deep breathing. Meditation can have huge benefits, but just the simple act of breathing, most people don't breathe deeply. Most people are shallow breathers. They take a breath, but it really doesn't go, obviously it's working, but the sensation that it's really not going past like your throat. You want to be breathing deep into your lungs and into your diaphragm, where your diaphragm expands out, like your stomach expands, just to oxygenate your tissues and your lungs and everything like that. So at the very least, slowing down your breath, inhaling for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 2, and then slowly exhale, and then repeating that 4 to 5 times is an awesome way to deal with stress, or if you're overwhelmed, or if you're even on a physical aspect for like workouts, if you've had like a tough run or you've had to exert yourself hard, slowing down your breath can really help you recover and get better. Number 5, not being afraid to vent to someone who will listen. If there's someone you can do that with, perfect. But again, that's where they say the journaling and writing down your thoughts when they build up is an incredibly effective way at managing your stress and your mindset. Just to dump, they call it a brain dump. Just get all that crap out of there, put it down in black and white, and then it's kind of out of there, and you don't have to, if even things like if you're worrying about remembering to do something and you've got all these different, like 5 or 6 different things, oh man, I can't forget. Write them down, and then it puts your mind at ease because you don't have to worry about forgetting them, because you can just refer back to whatever you wrote down. And then number 5, probably the most important thing to deal with stress, sleep. You need it more than ever when you're stressed, and this allows your body to basically metabolize those stress hormones. Sleep burns off those stress hormones. Like if you had, this is a weird example, but if you have like gasoline sitting on the top of water or like a lake, you know what I mean? And they just light it to burn it off, that gets rid of it. Think of your stress hormones as the same way, that your body's a lake and the stress hormones are on top. When you sleep, it just burns them off. You'll need, and make it a point to get more sleep when you're really run down, like physically or, mentally exhausted, whether it's all the running around you got to do, or training, or if you're physically beat down, make sure to get more sleep when stress and stuff like that hits. So I'll start wrapping it up here. Hopefully you've been able to see what a real threat stress can be to your health and wellness pursuits, and what it can do as far as causing like real damage in the body. And like I said, the sooner you're able to learn to identify stress, and then more importantly, learn how to manage it, the sooner you'll be back into better control of your health and your wellness, and everything like that. So that's probably a good place to leave it. If you have any like more questions or different, want to see more about different, I don't know, like deep breathing exercises or other exercises in general, or just, whatever questions, you can write to me at info@regainedwellness.com. Again, make sure to subscribe on iTunes. If you really like the show, leave a rating and review. That helps more people see it. And if you want to sign up to get an email from me every few weeks on, all sorts of health topics, fitness, everything, you can sign up by going to regainedwellness.com/guide. And yeah, that'll get you a free guide as well, like an ebook on some healthy eating issues, and then get you on that newsletter. Okay. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I know there's a lot of podcasts out there, so the fact you're listening to this one means a lot. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.